Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic, and today's comic is X-Men, issue number 66, dated March 1970. This is an issue, I have to be honest, that kind of grew on me. I remember reading it for the first time back when I was in high school. It wasn't new at the time. It was definitely a comic I picked up in a thrift store. And I didn't really remember liking it too much. It seemed very pedestrian to me. But I have to admit, throughout the years, in kind of reading it here and there, the story has kind of grown on me. But I would still kind of list it as kind of just maybe above average. Compared to the previous issues, which were done by Neil Adams, this issue is kind of a downer. And this issue is the last of the original first run issues of this title. And it does seem to kind of go out with a little bit of a whimper, not necessarily because this story is bad, is that it just kind of pales in comparison compared to what Neil Adams was doing. The cover here, we see the X-Men. They're battling the Hulk on the Vegas Strip. This is actually the best part of the comic. Even though most of the action does take place in Las Vegas, I don't think Sal Buscema really took advantage of the situation, because it looked like he was just drawing simply generic city 1970 rather than the actual Vegas Strip. We see the Hulk is on the cover, so the Hulk is the special guest star of this. Maybe they thought they were kind of going to juice up sales with the Hulk here. Marvel had already made the decision that this was going to be the last of the first run stories here. Basically what had happened is that when Neil Adams joined Marvel, he specifically asked what was Marvel's worst selling title, and he was told the X-Men, and that was the comic he wanted to draw because he wanted to show how valuable his contributions can be to selling comics. So he chose the X-Men really largely based on a business decision, also kind of a little bit of an ego, because then he can show when sales would increase, and they did increase. He can point to that with a great deal of pride. He can also go into and use those numbers to ask for a higher page rate. And what had happened was that during the Neil Adams run, sales of the X-Men did pick up. However, the sales increase wasn't enough for Marvel to want to invest in new stories. So the decision was that they were going to put the team on hiatus. And what they were going to do is that they were going to reprint issues of the X-Men. The thinking is that since those issues didn't sell particularly well, any new fans of the group would probably want to buy those reprints because they very likely did not read these comics in first run. And this continued obviously for I think about 5 years until the new X-Men came out. So Neil Adams was successful in saving the title. However, the sales didn't justify creating new stories from Marvel's business point of view. Okay, so we're told that the Hulk lashes out, and I'm going to get into the story. One thing about the cover is that we see Iceman, and he really doesn't work his way into this battle because he was too busy cock-blocking Cyclops' brother Havoc, and that's probably the most memorable part of this story. So I'm going to go into the splash page. The title of the book is The Mutants and the Monster. And the events of the previous issue are following through into this issue, what had happened in X-Men 95, Professor X had saved the world from an alien invasion, but the strain on that was so great that he fell comatose. The other X-Men are kind of helpless as to what to do, because obviously this is a medical issue, and this is a medical issue involving the person with the most powerful brain on Earth. So obviously this is kind of a little beyond their scope, and it's also beyond the scope of probably most medical technology at the time. We see Professor X, he's bedridden here. The other members, except for the Angel, are there kind of like, keeping watch of Professor X. You see Cyclops, Marvel Girl, the Beast, Iceman, and the two new additions to the X-Men, Havoc and Polaris. They never really took really good advantage of these two. And I'm going to take a look at the creative team. The story was written by Roy Thomas. The art is by Sal Buscema. And again, the art kind of sticks out because Sal was a different artist at this time than he was a few years later into the 70s. In the 70s, I think Sal Buscema developed his own style. It was sort of, in my view, kind of like the Marvel in-house style of the 1970s. When I see Sal Buscema comic books from the 1970s, to me that kind of embodies the Marvel style, the same way that Jack Kirby embodied the Marvel style in the 1960s. But at this point, Sal really hadn't developed his own style. So he was kind of doing a version of his brother's work, John. So this actually looks more like John Buscema than Sal. And see the X-Men, they're very concerned. They don't really know what to do here. They're obviously very upset that the person that they had known as their leader and mentor is in this state, particularly since for the last few years they had thought of Professor X as being dead, because that's what Professor X wanted people to think. And they just found out that he's alive in the previous issue, and just when they were kind of getting into the, hey, how you doing, this happens. So the team is particularly broken up about this. We see Havoc and Laura Dane, Polaris. They're particularly sad. They actually don't really know the professor that well. However, they did establish in X-Men 65 that they kind of got to know the professor kind of like, off panel. And during that brief time, they really kind of developed a liking for him. So these two are particularly upset, particularly Laura Dane here. Alex Havoc is trying to comfort her. However, Iceman immediately breaks in. And he doesn't care about the professor at all. He's worried that his territory is being trespassed on by Havoc here, because he views Laura Dane as, quote, his girl, but he's really kind of treating her as his property. Iceman here is being really problematic, and it's been pointed out a number of times, because again, this is the most noteworthy thing about this issue was the fact that Iceman is kind of like he's portrayed as this raging incel here. So anyway, in fact, I should say that when I first read this issue, I think I was like 14 at the time, even I was aware of how cringy and problematic his behavior was. So anyway, it turns out Havoc isn't really a fan of what Iceman's doing here. And he points out correctly, you claim she's your girl, but did you actually ask her if that's the case? And Havoc's explaining, he's explaining that he was trying to comfort her, which he shouldn't have to do. He doesn't have to justify anything to this little cold asshole here. However, again, Iceman, he just wants a fist fight here at this point. He doesn't care about Laura's feelings. He doesn't care about Professor X or anything else. He's just sort of like, he's caught up in his own little incel world. Cyclops here, he breaks up the fight by using his optic blast. The professor, if he gets out of this coma, and we know he does, he's not going to be too happy about the damage to his mansion here. But nevertheless, Cyclops points out both these guys are kind of acting like high school Romeos. Really, it's just there's one guy who's being a problematic guy, and not the other. But nevertheless, he has to break up this fight. Laura Dane doesn't really help out that much. She sides with Cyclops, but the thing is, she's not making like a decisive decision on how she feels or with whom she feels kind of like that connection, that romantic connection here. She kind of could have ended it here by saying, listen, I kind of like Havoc, and I kind of really don't like you, Iceman, but she doesn't do that. Anyway, we see Iceman. He's kind of putting on kind of like a brave front here, saying, "Listen, it's my hot temper. I may have my powers may be cold related, but my temper, oh man, it is raging here. And I'm just sorry that my raging Tony Soprano temper has just gotten the best of me." And to everyone else in the room, this is kind of like the mouse that roared. So no one's impressed here. And we see that Hank, the Beast, he wants to keep the subject on what's important, and that's Professor X's condition. And however, at some point, I think Bobby had mentioned the professor's mind probe, even though I actually can't find that piece of dialogue. So I'm wondering if the Beast is kind of is kind of just projecting stuff in his own head. And so apparently the professor has a mind probe. Excuse me. The professor has a mind probe device. And the Beast is thinking that they could probably use this at this point, even though the professor is unconscious. So anyway, they look at the apparatus here. The Beast is trying to figure out exactly how to operate this. It's really kind of strange that these guys are just using this sophisticated device on a living mind without actually testing whether they know what they're doing with this device. But apparently, the X-Men has had this device since Avengers 68. So somehow this device was introduced by Hank Pym. And I think he was working on it with Professor X, and then somehow the device fell into Professor X's custody. So anyway, the Beast, who is the most intelligent member of the team, he operates the device. They're seeing what's going to happen here. They don't really know what's going on. At this point, there's a lot of expository dialogue here, and really kind of not much action. I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't really like it the first time I read this comic book. So anyway, the Mind Probe is producing an image of Professor X, and he's speaking to the team. And Professor X, or at least an avatar of what's going on in Professor X's mind, he's focused on the Hulk. And apparently the Professor X really, really, really is concerned with what's going on with the Hulk. So the X-Men are kind of left to figure out what's going on, because apparently the consciousness of Professor X isn't really helping in terms of useful information. So the rest of the team sort of has to surmise what Professor means by referencing the Hulk. The other members, they're unaware of any type of encounter between Professor X and the Hulk. Also, the X-Men themselves have never encountered the Hulk. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. Jean Grey, who is kind of nursing Professor X at this point, she feels that he's sinking away, that he's kind of like, he's going to go to the great beyond at some point. Cyclops points out that Professor X had transferred some of his mental powers to Jean, something apparently Jean forgot about. And Cyclops wants to see whether Jean can kind of probe his mind and see if she can get any clues from the unconscious professor. She's not sure whether she can do this or not, but she's going to give it a try. And Jean, Marvel Girl, she's always been a pretty competent member of the team. So you can kind of trust her to kind of thread delicately with Professor X's compromised mental state at this point. So anyway, she also is finding images of the Hulk that seems to be forthright in Professor X's consciousness. So again, what the mind probe told them, Jean Grey kind of just verified it. But she's not getting any useful information other than the fact that Professor X is hyper-focused on the Hulk. However, Cyclops notes that the Hulk has two identities. There is the rampaging Hulk, and there's also Dr. Banner. And so Cyclops and the Beast, they kind of surmise that maybe the professor isn't thinking about the Hulk, but he's actually calling out for Bruce Banner. And since the Hulk is, the more well-known of the two identities, Professor X may not be entirely able to focus on Dr. Banner, but he can focus on the Hulk. So anyway, so what Cyclops does is he's going to take the team, except for his brother Havoc and Polaris, and they're going to find where the Hulk is, with the hope of actually encountering the Hulk's other identity, Dr. Banner, and see if Dr. Banner may have some clues as to what could help the Professor X. Because they're working under the premise that if the Professor X is focusing on the Hulk or Dr. Banner, that's who could save him. So it's kind of a little bit of a leap of faith there. In terms of not taking Havoc and Polaris, kind of a strange situation, because these are probably the two most powerful members of the team. But then again, these two have very little training. So on one hand, while they can bring a lot of raw power, they might not be able to be well trained enough to actually be that helpful in a situation like this. Also around this time, Havoc and Polaris were introduced, but they were never really fully integrated into the team. They kind of just seemed to be there. And I guess Marvel knew that they were canceling the comic. So I guess Roy Thomas didn't want to spend time developing these two characters for a title that he knew was going to be canceled. So anyway, Havoc and Polaris are going to stay here. They're going to guard Professor X, as Professor X has a lot of enemies, even though all his enemies think he's dead. So it's kind of like a weak pretext not to take these two along. But I'm thinking probably Sal didn't know these characters too well, and Sal was like, "Can I draw fewer characters here?" So these two stayed. However, there's another member of the X-Men who's going to stay, and that's Iceman, because Iceman has to cock block Havoc, And I think this is probably the first time in comic book history that a hero refused to go on a mission because he had to cock block another of his teammates. This is something that you would see in like Alan Moore's Watchmen. But again, this is kind of interesting here. Bobby is acting like a real jerk here. I mean, there's no way like any woman would find this type of like stalkerish possessiveness attractive at all. But we see that the three members of the X-Men, they're leaving in kind of like this Quinjet. I think this is a jet that they had grabbed from the Avengers, and they kind of didn't return it. Anyway, we see that they're still kind of short a member here, but it turns out they're going to go to the Angel, who couldn't be bothered to check in on Professor X, and they say, hey, maybe Warren wants to come along. They're probably telling him that, hey, listen, we might be going to Vegas here. You can, play some craps and, kind of like join us on this mission here. Turns out the Angel is kind of bored, so he kind of joins the team here, and I think it turns out that the Angel kind of flies. Oh no, the Angel enters the jet, but then he exits when they reach Las Vegas, because this is where the news report said that the Hulk was last seen in. They actually don't have a way of tracking down the Hulk, so they actually have to listen to news radio to figure out where he is at the time. Again, kind of not good storytelling here, because again, I mean, you don't necessarily need to see the Angel enter the jet here, but nevertheless, they tell rather than show. And normally that's not good comic book storytelling. So anyway, they're flying above the city of Vegas. I've never been to Las Vegas. From what I heard, it's basically, the Strip, and everything around it's kind of a dump. But like I said, I've never been there, so I'll digress on the city itself. And before I go back to the story, I'm going to take a look at the Mighty Marvel checklist. I think this issue actually has two of them, and it looks like they have comics from the previous month. Okay, so what was out at this time? In spring of 1970, Fantastic Four number 96. This is the Fantastic Four versus the Mad Thinker. I remember this as being a really good cover, and this is obviously toward the end of Kirby's run. Spider-Man was up to issue number 82. This one has Electro. I think this is a really good issue. Issue number 82. I think that's when Spider-Man and Electro fight in the TV studio. Silver Surfer number 13. I never really cared for the Silver Surfer as a solo comic. Avengers issue number 73. That's a Black Panther issue, and the Sons of the Serpent are in it. I thought Steve Gerber made really great use of the Sons of the Serpent in the Defenders a few years later. See Hulk issue number 173. Again, I was never into the Hulk. No, I'm sorry, I said Hulk. I meant Thor. Thor issue number 173. I was never really into Thor that much. I hated Asgard, and I didn't really care too much about his solo adventures. I liked him in the Avengers, but not his solo adventures. Captain America issue number 123. This is Captain America is fighting Suprema. This is a female version, I guess, of Captain America, or at least Hydra-related supervillain. X-Men issue number 65. which is, the return of Professor X in the previous issue. That's the issue to get, because that's the Neil Adams one. Daredevil 61. This is the Jester, Cobra, and Mr. Hyde. I was never a big fan of Daredevil. Hulk issue number 125, The Absorbing Man. Whenever the Hulk and the Absorbing Man squared off, I loved those issues. Iron Man number 23, never really into Iron Man that much. Submariner 23. I was not into the Submariner at this time. I liked his later adventures, but not during this period. Let's see what else. There's a bunch of comics. Marvel Tales 25. Nothing of note here. It's kind of some of the reprint issues. And here is an advertisement for Marvel Mania. This is a company that was kind of had a semi business relationship with Marvel. I think it was a guy who got the idea that he could sell Marvel merchandise to all these kids, and I think he was able to get some of the licensing from Marvel, and I think he also, the guy who ran it, I should say, he also was able to kind of get some original art from the actual artist. But I heard it was like a really badly run company. Like the guy who ran it was just a scam artist, and kids would send their money in, but they may not necessarily have gotten their merchandise afterwards. That's how shoddily run it was. I'm sure Marvel got some bad rep from that, even though they actually weren't directly related with the company. So anyway, go back to the story. The Angel is going to take the lead in directly confronting the Hulk here. The Hulk is on the strip at this point. He's really pissed. I'm assuming that he went into one of those casinos and they fleeced him. They fleeced him out of whatever money he had, and the Hulk was pissed. He didn't even get the continental breakfast. That's how angry he is. And so anyway, the Angel's pretty impressed with the Hulk here. Again, they've never actually encountered the Hulk in person. Now, this is something of an issue later on, about 9 years later, because there's a Hulk annual where the Hulk and the guest stars are the Angel and Iceman. And in that issue, the Angel points out that he had never seen the Hulk before, when in fact, I think Chris Claremont had wrote that issue. He had forgotten about this issue. That Hulk annual is one that I covered. It's a really great issue. So anyway, Angel is just going to go straight forward. He realizes, I think at this point, he's overmatched. And he's just simply going to try something and to see what he can do against clearly this formidable opponent. Hulk is not too happy. He doesn't recognize the Angel at all, but he recognizes the vibe. Because, the Angel has the outfit, he has the power, and to Hulk, this is just another costume intruder just bothering him. So what the Hulk does is he clasps his fist and he hits them. And what this does is that this causes the Marvel shockwave effect. And this alone is able to take the Angel out of action. Because beyond his wings, the Angel's just basically a normal person. The other X-Men, they land the jet on the strip. So the strip is taking kind of a beating here. And Cyclops is pointing out that Angel has been stunned and that they need to go into action. But Cyclops doesn't come up with any plan. They just simply rush him and the other X-Men. They just kind of rush the Hulk here. The Beast now decides he's going to take the lead, which makes sense. He's their strongest member, even though he's sort of like on kind of like a lower mid-level strength in terms of in terms of a Marvel protagonist. And the Beast does what he can with a direct hit to the Hulk right in the face. And the Beast is a little surprised that the Hulk doesn't feel this at all. He's not even fazed by what was going on. And the Hulk just doesn't want to listen to this guy. Apparently he's using too many big words for the Hulk.
Easy, not too many syllables.
I got lightheaded there.
And the Hulk just simply swats him away. Cyclops actually wants to talk it out here, which kind of does make a bit of sense, given how overmatched the team is. But Hulk isn't in the mood for listening at this point, because every time he's listened to anyone in a costume, he's been betrayed one way or another. And because of this, and because of all these bad experiences the Hulk has had with authority figures, or people trying to assert authority over the Hulk reaches out, he grabs a lamppost. Again, at this point, the background, it's not Vegas anymore. And it just becomes generic city, USA, 1970. So anyway, the Hulk is coming directly at them with this lamppost, looking to swat them. Cyclops, he still wants to talk it out, but he realizes at some point that he can't let this guy hit them. And he definitely can't let him hit Jean. So Cyclops goes on the offensive here, and he uses his optic blast. However, his optic blasts are kind of like really not slowing him down that much. And the Hulk is kind of going forward. In terms of Sal Buscema's Hulk, kind of looks like early Gil Kane. So if you've seen any of the Hulks drawn by Gil Kane when he first came to Marvel, that's sort of what his Hulk looks like. Obviously, Sal Buscema drew a lot of Hulk issues. I grew up reading those Hulk issues, and he also drew the Defenders. So the Hulk character is one that's really known to Sal Buscema, but he had not developed his in-house style or his own style at this point. Some of the proportions are off here. Hulk's left hand is way bigger than his right hand, and there are issues with the Hulk's forearms. That was one of the things that a lot of Marvel artists had problems with. Gil Kane surprisingly had problems with that, where he tended to draw the forearms much larger than they should be. So anyway, the Hulk's trying to go forward. He's being continuously hit by Cyclops' optic rays. Cyclops is noting that he's only slowing him down very, very slightly, and that these two might be in trouble. However, Jean sees an opening. She's saying, Scott, listen, just kind of hold this guy back a little longer, and I think I can use my mental powers on him. Because at this point, obviously, the Hulk's mind is definitely his weakest attribute. So it turns out that as Cyclops is holding the Hulk in place, Marvel Girl is using her mental powers against him, and the Hulk is feeling this, and apparently this pressure is increasing, and the Hulk has no defense against it, so he actually passes out from the mental strain. And it turns out that when the Hulk passed out, he underwent the transformation from the Hulk to Dr. Banner. So at this point, the X-Men are actually victorious against Marvel's strongest character. So this is kind of a nice little notch on the X-Men's belt here. They noted that they're noting that the Hulk is no more, and that he's now Dr. Banner. Obviously, everyone in the Marvel Universe is familiar with this transformation. The X-Men, Cyclops, and Marvel Girl, they immediately start peppering Dr. Banner about about does he remember like Charles Xavier, and they want to see whether he has any information that can help them. Now, Dr. Banner at this point, he doesn't remember Charles Xavier at the moment. He's a little discombobulated here, and he's really tired, and he wants to rest. He's been through this kind of traumatic transformation, but Cyclops is like, no. Our questions come first. You answer our questions first, and then we'll think about giving you some time to rest. Although, in some fairness, given Charles Xavier's medical condition, there is a little bit of urgency there. We see the Beast and the Angel. They notice something happening behind them. And when they turn around, they find that Major Talbot is there. And he's brought some of the military from the Hulkbusters base that I think is located in New Mexico. So the Southwest was sort of like Hulk's home base for a long time. And the military wants to take Dr. Banner into custody, since obviously it's much easier to deal with Dr. Banner than it is the Hulk. The military here, who are not supposed to be doing this, on U.S. soil, nevertheless are here very active in trying to capture Dr. Banner. Cyclops is trying to explain the situation to the Major, saying, listen, we have nothing, we don't have any issues with you actually taking Dr. Banner forcibly into custody. We just want to ask him a few questions first. After he answers our question, then we'll kind of throw him to the wolves here. But can you kind of hold off and let us, ask him a few questions? Again, Cyclops name drops, Charles Xavier. And now Dr. Banner is he's a little more lucid here, and he remembers he remembers Charles Xavier's name. And he kind of gets some expository dialogue on what he knows about Charles Xavier. What he knows about Charles Xavier. He says that they had exchanged some correspondence, and they were kind of like musing on the idea that gamma ray treatment can be used for mental exhaustion. I'm not quite sure being pelted with gamma rays is going to do anything for anyone's mental state, given how traumatic this transformation Dr. Banner has to go through. But nevertheless, this is the thing that binds the story together. So Charles Xavier, at least his subconscious, is aware that there is a device out there that could help him. It's a device that he worked with Dr. Banner on, and it's something that Dr. Banner may actually have access to. And apparently Dr. Banner, this is during the time where he had some secret labs. And apparently one of these labs has the device in question. So Cyclops is kind of pressing Dr. Banner into taking them into one of these secret labs. However, the Major isn't buying this. He wants to take Dr. Banner into custody. Dr. Banner is kind of upset. He's upset. He's actually more upset about what might possibly happen to Charles Xavier than what would happen to him. But nevertheless, this does trigger the transformation of Dr. Banner back into the Hulk. Again, the art's decent. It's not great, but it's fine. At this point, Sal really didn't draw a very good Hulk, though. So it looks like the military is taking charge now. They're going to confront the Hulk. The Hulk knows all their tricks, so it's not like there's anything that he hasn't seen before. So as the tank kind of comes forward, Hulk is able to grab it, and he's able to basically render it incapacitated by just smashing it. Hulk is saying that he wants to be left alone. And what I did to the tank, I can do to you. Do you hear me? Do you understand me? This is obviously years before Joe Fixit went to the Vegas Strip. I love those that 1 year where Hulk was Joe Fixit in the 80s. Same way the Hulk leaps off. The X-Men are obviously very concerned about this because the information that they need is in Dr. Banner's head. And one, Dr. Banner isn't there anymore. And two, they realize that they're going to have to chase the Hulk down and get into another situation where he does transform back into Dr. Banner. The problem is the military here. Now, the military is kind of fixated on the Hulk, who is leaping away. So the X-Men kind of tippy-toe out of this combat theater here. It turns out that once the Hulk is out of their range, they kind of turn around to see where the X-Men are. And they kind of realize those guys kind of snuck off. So at this point, they're leaving the Vegas Strip. So they're flying in their jet to kind of hopefully kind of catch up to the Hulk. They do. So right now they're in the Nevada desert here, and they're gonna see what they can do to get Dr. Banner back. The Hulk spots them, so the Hulk is going to go into combat mode at this point, and the other X-Men, they know they're going to have a fight on their hands. The Hulk is on top of a large cliff here, and he's holding a huge boulder, and he does see the other X-Men below him. The Angel is flying to intercept the Hulk here, but it looks like the Hulk has no interest in the Angel. And basically, the Hulk just basically throws the boulder right past the Angel, and he's intent on hitting kind of the more powerful members of the team. Cyclops is able to destroy the boulder, so at this point, him and Marvel Girl, who is going to use her telekinesis to sort of spread the debris or the rock fragments. So right now the team is safe. So the Beast, however, has his own ideas on how to confront the Hulk. So the Beast is not consulting actually with Cyclops at this point. He's kind of freelancing. That was always a problem with the X-Men, is that, you know, Cyclops was the supposed leader, but every so often the other members would kind of freelance on him. The Beast, who kind of name drops Justice Douglas. I'm assuming this is Justice Stephen O. Douglas, or William O. Douglas, I think. He was a very famous Supreme Court justice. I'm not sure about the reference here, but it looks like the Beast is going to hit him from behind, the Hulk. But it looks like the Beast's plan is basically to kick the Hulk from behind. So it's kind of a wimpy ass move. But then again, the Beast is really overmatched here. And turns out that the Beast is really proud of himself. That he caught this person from he caught the Hulk from behind. The Hulk dropped the boulder. He doesn't know what happened. He falls off the cliff. You know, he does this P move, and the Beast is just really proud of himself. So anyway, the Hulk is falling to the ground here. And the Beast is hoping that if the Hulk becomes unconscious again, he'll transform back into Dr. Banner. So then the Hulk hits the ground quite hard, and Cyclops and Marvel Girl are left scrambling. The resulting avalanche has kind of buried the Hulk at this point. The Beast is freaking out here that he had murked the Hulk at this point, and he feels that this one incident will reflect badly on mutants everywhere. Cyclops is saying, "Listen, take it easy. The Hulk's a tough customer. We don't know if either him or Banner are dead." Angel notices that the rocks that are covering the Hulk, they're starting to shake, and then we see the Hulk breaking free. And right now, the Hulk is really pissed off at these guys, and they're kind of running out of ideas at this point. However, it turns out that behind the Hulk accidentally exposed one of Dr. Banner's secret laboratories. And what is occurring is that because one of the members here is using Dr. Banner's name, this is really antagonizing the Hulk at this point. The Hulk is aware of Dr. Banner's existence. He doesn't fully understand it, but he knows that Banner wants him done, wants him finished. And because of this, the Hulk carries a great deal of hatred for Dr. Banner, even though he's not fully able to grasp that he actually is Dr. Banner, but in a different state. So again, the team, the X-Men, they're focused on the lab, and they're thinking that, hey, maybe this is the lab that has the gizmo that will help Professor X. But the thing is, they keep name dropping Banner's name, and this is just aggravating the Hulk like crazy. And he is just pissed off that they just keep bringing up Dr. Banner's name. So what's going on here is that basically Cyclops has taken the lead in confronting the Hulk, while the Angel flies into the lab hoping to find this device that they're looking for. This device that, where gamma rays can be used for mental exhaustion. Cyclops is thinking that maybe Jean can use her mental powers on Hulk. Hulk is furious. He's aware of what had happened earlier on the strip, and he's not going to allow that here. And again, he hits the ground, kind of uses the Marvel shockwave thing. This kind of creates an opening here that looks like it's going to swallow up Cyclops and Marvel Girl here. And obviously they're very concerned about this because they still have to get that device, but at the same time, they really can't extract themselves from the Hulk because the Hulk won't let them leave, basically. And it turns out that as the ground is starting to open up, and Cyclops and Marvel Girl are going to eventually be trapped, kind of like the same way Lois was trapped in the first Superman movie. Suddenly, a pair of large hands reaches out and grabs them from midair, and it turns out to be the Beast. The Beast is apparently holding on to a ladder that is coming from the Quinjet. So apparently the Quinjet is kind of able to hold its place in orbit. I guess they're using autopilot here. And the Beast is able to grab his teammates here. So Cyclops and Marvel Girl are safe at the moment. It turns out that the Angel was able to find the device that they were looking for. And they're kind of they're still in some danger here because the Hulk is still around, and the Hulk does carry grudges. However, the Hulk notices that these guys kind of want to leave, and they kind of don't want to press this fight anymore. So then it turns out that the Hulk is happy to end this fight as is, and he's kind of hoping that he can find some peace. Then it turns out Gene is noting that it's just an amazing coincidence how everything kind of wrapped up very nicely here. And Cyclops is saying, well, it may not have been necessarily a coincidence. And the thinking is that maybe the Hulk had kind of had a subliminal message from Dr. Banner that, you know, they needed to go to this lab. So they're thinking that maybe the Hulk helped out subconsciously. So anyway, the rest of the team, they show up back in Professor X's mansion in Westchester. We see that Iceman, Havoc, and Lorna, they're still there. So at this point, any type of antagonism Iceman and Havoc had, they were sort of able to kind of control themselves here. So anyway, they're going to test this device on Professor X. Again, they don't know whether it's going to work or not. You know, they'll just kind of just use it on him. Don't need to study the technology. I think they have a couple of papers from Hank Pym. They might have gotten a letter, you know, that Dr. Banner had written, and that might be enough for them to figure out what's going on here. Then suddenly the team, they're kind of waiting with bated breath to see what happened. And it turns out that Professor X kind of opens his eyes and he starts talking to the team. So he's lucid and he's opening his eyes. So it appears that the device did work and they did operate it correctly. And the Professor X is saying, hey, listen, I only had enough mental strength to give you clues, but you figured it out. And you guys should be really proud of yourself. Professor X looks really tired, though. And we see here that the team's around the Professor X here. Iceman actually has the nerve to say, thank the Lord. This guy did nothing. This guy did nothing to help Professor X. He was only interested in cock-blocking Havoc. And he has the nerve to say something like that. We see here that you know, Professor X is kind of reminding the team of their original mission, and that, you know, is to stop evil mutants, and you guys did the good thing. And that's about it. Everyone is happy right now. And gonna go and we're gonna look at Marvel Bullpen Bulletins. And again, this is weird because this also has a Mighty Marvel checklist, but this is for the upcoming issues or the current issues, whereas the first Marvel checklist I read was the previous issues. Okay, so, and I'm gonna go through these because these are different issues. Okay, so it turns out that, let's see what's going on in the bullpen bulletins. Stan Lee and Carmine Infantino, they had a meeting, so they're actually kind of discussing issues in the comic book world. Marvel rarely acknowledged DC's existence, but I think at this point they figured out this meeting was like large enough that they could do this. And turns out that Marie Severin, she actually got some commercial artwork published in Esquire magazine. Apparently they hired her to kind of, I guess, do a sketch of Joe Namath. Marie Severin did really good caricatures. So I think she probably did a caricature of Joe Namath as King Kong. They're also reporting that John Buscema is coming back to the Avengers. It's probably good news. I was never a fan of, like, you know, Gene Colan, who I think replaced Buscema on the Avengers. And Jack Kirby, they're mentioning he had done a horror title for Chamber of Darkness. I think that was Kirby's last comic book with Marvel before he went to DC. So at this point, Marvel had no idea that Kirby was about to jump ship, I should say. The issue of Chamber of Darkness, I thought that was kind of a touching issue. I remember I got a little teary-eyed reading that. And they're also mentioning that Jack is working from California now. And see, Roy Thomas met Elvis on vacation. Okay. And Gary Friedrich got married in Las Vegas. And Gene Colan they're trying to find a new place for Gene Colan at this point. Okay, and Stan's soapbox. It's just him talking about how he goes to colleges and gives speeches. That's basically what he was doing at this time. Okay, gonna go through the Marvel checklist. Fantastic Four 97, Monster from the Lost Lagoon. Yeah, at this point Jack was just phoning it in. Spider-Man 83. There's a new bad guy, the Schemer. That character went nowhere, so it's kind of a dud. Silver Surfer number 14, didn't care for the Silver Surfer. Avengers 74, I think I talked about that issue before. Thor issue number 174. Crypto Man. Okay. Yeah. Some of the issues look like they're continuations from the previous Marvel checklist. Someone didn't do their job well this month. Hulk number 126, the Nightcrawler, that went nowhere. Daredevil 62, Nighthawk, that was a good issue. Daredevil number 62, that was when Daredevil faced off with Nighthawk, who was the analog to DC's Batman. So this is basically Daredevil versus Batman, a really obnoxious version of Batman. X-Men number 66, we just talked about that issue. Iron Man 24, nothing interesting. Submariner 24, nothing interesting. Yeah, nothing else interesting here. Okay. See there's the letters page. And okay, so we got 2 pages of letters. And this also includes the announcement that the X-Men will be going on hiatus. Now, at the time of this, the readers are talking about issues number 62 and 63. That's when the X-Men went to the Savage Land. The first letter was very complimentary, just basically saying that Neil Adams is kind of God here. His artwork is so wonderful. And the second letter is asking about the Mimic. I remember liking the Mimic. And how come he hasn't appeared? He's also asking about what happened to Jean Grey when she transferred into Metro College. He also wants to know what happened to the Super Adaptoid. And basically, what this guy is doing is that he's asking about all the loose ends that Marvel never bothered to tie up with the X-Men because they just didn't care about this title too much. And Marvel's response basically is, Dave, don't think about it too much. We didn't care, so you shouldn't care either. Another reader's writing in saying that is asking about getting a no prize because they noticed something wrong in issue number 57. Here's another letter, very short one. In X-Men 47, we saw the Torch tell Iceman that he would battle him when the Mets win the pennant. And Alan is asking, well, because actually 1969 the New York Mets won the World Series. Marvel answered back that basically because of the timing, they actually couldn't follow up on this. There's a letter here that's kind of going through the X-Men artists, starting with issue number 1. And this writer here, I don't believe really kind of doesn't like Neil Adams' artwork. Yeah, anyway, the last letter is kind of interesting in that it's actually a letter from someone who isn't a fan of Neil Adams. And basically he's wondering, why do you have this like exciting, innovative Neil Adams drawing this comic when you can have dull and boring, Roth Werner doing it? This is always weird. This is sort of like, there are always kids who preferred Crack to Mad. They always preferred the knockoff to the actual original. I'm sorry, there's a lot of action going on in the street behind me. And then the last one is the announcement that this is going to be the last X-Men with original stories, and that at this point it's going to be a reprint comic, and they're just going to try to figure out what to do with the team. So they didn't want to cancel the team outright, but at the same time they wanted to figure out what to do with them. And there were a number of attempts to sort of bring the X-Men back. One of them was from Marvel Team Up issue number 4, where they tried to do a Mod Squad type thing with the X-Men, where the X-Men would be fighting in their civilian clothing. And they did spin out the Beast and completely changed his persona in Amazing Adventures. But then, you guys would have to wait like 5 years before they definitively did something with the X-Men. So anyway, that's it. That's my walkthrough with X-Men 166, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.